Welcome to the Wretched Hive podcast.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Moss Eisley Spaceport.
What are you talking about?
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
This is ridiculous.
We must be cautious.
Actually, we're just a bunch of guys talking about Star Wars and other stuff.
I'm looking forward to having some real talk with some real folks.
That's good news.
I like the sound of that.
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Wretched Hive podcast. This one for Friday, July 15th, 2022. My name is Steve Baldwin. And joining me tonight are Greg and Dave to talk some Thor Love and Thunder. We're pumped up and excited to share our initial reaction and review for Thor Love and Thunder. We're also going to talk a little bit of Miss Marvel and maybe preview some of the shows we have coming down the road around maybe some Stranger Things, some Star Trek, what we do in the shadows. We're going to cover a lot tonight, guys.
There's so much to talk about. Dave's cat is the most miserable looking cat in the face of the planet too, as he picks that poor thing up into the screen. Holy Christ, dude.
My cat says fuck you, Greg.
Wow.
Your cat says fuck you, Dave. That's what your cat says.
Nico's not even...
God, Nico!
He's curled up and purring as we speak, sir.
Aww.
Here's Dave's cat right now.
God fucking damn it, Dave.
You knew your cat could sing so well.
Nico's not even here.
If my cat could sing that well, I would be so rich I would not be hanging out with any of you guys.
And there's FUs going back and forth already on the show, and Nico's not even here. You know, there's a review that I read on, I think it's on WAPO, and one of the comments for Thor Love and Thunder, and one of the comments was, you know, since apparently Brett Goldstein is going to be in Marvel movies.
Spoiler alert, dude!
Spoiler alert!
Whoa!
Jesus Christ, man!
I know.
You just
nobody
jammed it right in there, man.
I did. No lube. Why don't they have? And so he's famous for dropping the F-bomb on Ted Lasso.
Quite often.
So this commenter was saying, why don't Hercules and a Ryan Reynolds character why don't they do a buddy movie between what's
Deadpool,
help me out.
Deadpool,
yes. Can you imagine those two just dropping F-bombs? The whole script is like 30% F word. Thought that was pretty funny. Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. Sorry for that spoiler. Should we throw up a spoiler
thought of that
alert?
idea of, but I think I would rather have between Deadpool and Brett Goldstein's character in Ted Lasso. I think that would be the better show than Deadpool and Hercules, because Hercules is kind of just like Thor. I mean, to be honest, Hercules is kind of just like Thor.
It's like a dumb Thor.
A dumb Thor. Thor?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's not saying. That's actually quite descriptive.
I'm just saying, Thor in the comics he's more of a smart character, more of a leadership quality character, and Hercules is like the guy you go to the bar with.
Okay, that makes
fair.
sense. I can see that. Yeah,
That's fair.
I'll buy Brett Goldstein a beer. Let's go out and talk some Ted Lasso, some Marvel.
Exactly.
I'm down for that. Listen, guys, we're going to get right to this because we have a lot to cover tonight. There's a big movie out that's in theaters. The three of us have seen it. And
we're
called.
Not talking about Top Gun Maverick.
Before we get started, I really have to mention today's a very important day. Today, as we record this show, not the day as the day the episode drops, as they say in the business, or whatever day you might be listening. Today, we record the show, July 13th, the year of our Lord 2022. There are 2 birthdays today, 2 that we have not mentioned on this show at all. And I'm going to tell you, these 2 gentlemen, spoiler alert, were only born 2 years apart. One is 2 years older than the other gentleman.
So they're not twins.
They're not twins.
All right. Just trying to narrow it down.
They could possibly play them on TV. First one, birthday number 1. And I'll even ruin it right now. He's the older of the 2 gentlemen.
Oh, come on.
82 years young.
Spoiler alert.
Sir Patrick Stewart himself.
Wow.
Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Charles Xavier, He was that dude in Excalibur back in 1980.
Yes.
One of the
And he's
greatest
in-
actures of our generation, Greg.
One of the greatest
I would
actors of
say.
our generation. Birthday number
Ebenezer
2.
Scrooge. Ebenezer Scrooge. He was Ebenezer
Ebenezer
Scrooge.
Scrooge. Absolutely. Birthday number 2. Coming in at 80 years old. Born July 13th, 80 years ago, today. Harrison motherfucking Ford, guys. Han Solo, Indiana Jones.
Wow.
The president who says, "Get off my plane." Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan himself. Yep.
The guy accused of murdering his wife.
The guy accused
Twice.
of murdering his wife.
Presumed
The
innocent
guy-
and the fugitive.
The guy looking for the one-armed man. The guy who fucks that nun in that one movie. And who fucks the Amish girl in that one movie.
Indiana fucking Jones.
If you would have told me
Wow.
that
That's
Jean-Luc
huge.
Picard is only 2 years older than Han Solo, I would have told you to go fuck yourself. But it's true. 82 and 80 years old today, guys. And there's going to be another Indiana Jones movie coming out next fucking year. And he's 80 years old.
I'm sorry, Harrison, but I would have guessed that you're older than Patrick. Apologize.
Would you really?
I would
Really?
have. Yes, I would have guessed that.
Wow.
Sorry. Yep. Well,
I wouldn't have guessed that they're so close because
pretty
Jean-Luc
close.
Picard seemed old in the 80s when Star Trek The Next Generation was an in-production show at the time. He seemed old back then. And Harrison Ford seemed like my dad. So,
see, that's because you were only like 4 back then. That's why everybody seemed old to you. I don't
true.
know. Yeah.
I'm still like 4.
Wow.
Yeah,
so
boy.
Jean-Luc Picard
Emotionally, yes.
and Han Solo have the same birthday. That's amazing.
This is true. This is true.
Wow.
I felt that was worthy of interrupting the show. I'm sorry to sidetrack things, but I felt that it was a much worthy journey.
It is because they are the respective captains of arguably the 2 most iconic ships in filmic sci-fi genre, right? The Millennium Falcon and the Starship Enterprise. Those are
Who would win in a fight between the Millennium Falcon and the Starship Enterprise? If they were to actually fight, it would be the Enterprise because the Millennium Falcon can only run away.
I got to
Yeah.
go Enterprise. Yeah.
I got to go Enterprise. I'm not saying that the Millennium Falcon can't win, but it's like in 5 fights, the Millennium Falcon wins maybe one of those fights.
I would give it much less odds than that.
Never tell me
Never
the
tell.
odds.
Thank you. Somebody was ready for it. Jesus Christ.
You guys practiced that earlier today, didn't you? I think. The whole thing was leading up to that one line for Dave. All right, can we talk about Thor, for God's sakes? We're 8 minutes into the show, and we haven't even started on Thor yet.
Axl Rose's Thor Love and Thunder.
Yes. Let's go ahead and throw up a spoiler alert, because if you're listening to this show and you have not seen...
It's already been fucking spoiled. It's already too late for the
And
alert.
you have
Yeah,
not...
you gave away the biggest reveal already.
and you have not seen Thor, what are you doing? Do not listen to this show. Spoiler alert coming right now.
Are you turning this up louder?
I did. When he took his headphones off, I cranked it up just to make sure he could still hear
I put the
it.
headphones near the cat, and the cat left.
I'm like, why is this getting louder right now?
Cat's like, I'm out of here. Thor Love and Thunder, guys, is a fun movie. It's a fun movie. It's an interesting movie, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think about it. Let me just run down a little bit of data for you. The movie was released on July 8th, 2022, directed by Taika Waititi, who's becoming quite the accomplished director. He's done quite a bit of good work for Marvel, and apparently, allegedly working on a Star Wars movie now.
Also, big time man crush from Greg Lent on the director.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Big time. Yep. It's the 4th Marvel film in the series, and apparently read online somewhere today that Chris Hemsworth is in discussion to do a 5th movie.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about why.
I'll get into that story a little later on. We go through everything, but
now what's interesting about this is that I realized today, I'm like, how many movies have there been in Phase 4 of Marvel? Because it just seems like the other day we were talking about, Phase 4 just started. So I went back and looked.
You have to count the TV shows too.
Well, yes. Okay, we can count. So this is the 6th movie, like theatrical release film of Phase 4.
Can you name the 6 movies, sir?
Yeah, only because I have them written down. But let's do movies and television because, and I won't make you guys try and do this, but let's just run this down really quick. Just since January of 2021, we start with WandaVision.
Is that the beginning of Phase 4? Is WandaVision?
Well,
is that the beginning?
Yes, because Phase 4 got really, really garbled, right? It was supposed to launch with Guardians of the Galaxy 3, and then that was completely blown up by the firing of James Gunn and then rehiring. That slipped on the timeline, and I believe the original launch show for the Disney Plus Marvel TV stuff was supposed to be Falcon and Winter Soldier. But because of COVID, that wasn't able to be completed on time, so it wound up being WandaVision.
So Endgame. So actually, Endgame is not the last of Phase 3. It was actually Ant-Man and the Wasp was the end. Or no was it Endgame? It was Endgame.
It was Spider-Man Far From Home. Was the
Far From Home.
Phase 3.
End of Phase 3. Far From Home.
Even though it technically takes place in Phase 4.
Damn timeline.
Because I did some work trying to figure out the timeline over the weekend, and Spider-Man No Way Home starts right after Spider-Man Far From Home. So you can't, even though it's a Phase 3 film, I'm like, it takes place in the frickin' middle of Phase 4. So whatever.
Well, and you have all these divergent timelines, but we might see more of that. We might see a Phase 5 releases that actually take place in Phase 4. It's possible, right? All right, so we start with. Oh, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and the fact that the most they all have home in the name, and I can never get the Spider-Man movies right. The most recent Spider-Man movie takes place immediately following the last Spider-Man movie that was released. I mean, because there's the whole reveal of Peter Parker being Spider-Man, and one leads right into the next. So it caps off Phase 3. But it's like Rogue One going into A New Hope. The movies take place immediately after each other.
It's Far From Home into No Way Home, right?
Far From Home and No Way Home. Yeah.
All right, so we got WandaVision, January of 2021. Falcon and Winter Soldier, that started literally like 2 weeks after WandaVision ended. That was in March of 2021. Mm-hmm. Loki, another TV show that was great. I loved Loki, and I love talking about that with you guys. That was a lot of fun. In June of 2021. Mm-hmm. Then the first movie, Black Widow, July of 2021. So this is like a year ago from today, roughly. July 9th, 2021. Black Widow hit the theaters. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, that was September of last year. Mm-hmm. Then we get into the fall. So we're into What If in August, The Eternals in November, Hawkeye also in November. So Hawkeye ran November, December of 2021. That led us into the holiday movie season with Spider-Man No Way Home. Mm-hmm. Then we had a little pause for almost a quarter until we get into Moon Knight in March, Doctor Strange in May, Miss Marvel last month, and then just a week ago, Thor Love and Thunder. That's 11, I think, if I counted right. 13 properties from Marvel since January of 2021. That is insane.
And the sad thing about it is that while you can talk and you can talk about, we all know that Kang the Conqueror is the big bad of season 4. We don't know that because the only time we've seen or heard mention of him, Phase 4, the only time we've seen or heard mention of him so far is in the Loki series, and he hasn't.
Not as Kang.
And not as Kang. He's the guy who lives at the end of the universe or whatever it is. So it's weird that there's really no direction for where Phase 4 is going right now, and I'm wondering if it's because of all the stuff that Dave had brought up. The, COVID fucking everything up, the having to juggle the schedule because of the hiring and the firing and rehiring of James Gunn. The properties have all been, decent to really good. There hasn't been anything that's a real stinker other than Eternals. But
I would put What If below Eternals, but I might be in a minority there.
Oh yeah, no.
What about the Doctor Strange episode for What If? That alone is worth it. And the Captain America. What's her name?
Look, I'm not saying it's not important or critical to what's going on. I mean, you've got Thor: Dark World playing in the background there, which is legitimately one of the worst films that they've done, but is a super critical movie to understanding, the Infinity Saga of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, regardless of how the quality of these Phase 4 so far, it's certainly not hurting the box office. Thor Love and Thunder, just today, as we release the show, as we're recording the show today alone, I checked right before we started recording, 13.7 million in box office just today on a Wednesday, domestic. Overall, 170 million domestic, 329 million worldwide on a $250 million budget. The movie's been out for 5 days.
So it's doing okay is what you're saying.
It's doing okay. Yes.
I always, as I'm watching these movies, one thing that's constantly coming up in the back of my head is, A, should I be taking notes for this to explain this to Steve at a later time?
Yes.
And B, is Steve taking notes and writing down questions that he has that he can ask us on the next time we record?
Well, so here's my process. Even with the Star Wars stuff, I always try to watch it once as a fan. Like, I don't want to write anything down. I don't want to I just watch it once, but then the second time I'm like madly typing on my, everything that I see. So I've only seen Love and Thunder once. But I do have some notes and some questions here for Love and Thunder.
So do we want to maybe say what just our kind of overall top line reactions were before we start dissecting this a little bit?
That's a great idea.
I feel like all of these reviews should just be an FAQ for Steve, is what it is. He asks the question and we answer it.
True that.
And I'll start off with this. So, while I liked the movie, I enjoyed the movie. I will recommend the movie.
Yep.
I enjoyed the individual pieces of it, or segments of it, more than I did the overall finished, completed project, if that makes any sense. And you can disagree with that, but I just hope I'm explaining that well, that I like the pieces of it as individual little pieces, like, oh, that was really great. Oh, I loved that. And the overall product, maybe more of a B+ category for me overall.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And Amy's review of it was that it was an aesthetically pleasing movie for her.
Enough said. All right.
She's happy she got to see Chris Hemsworth's ass. Is that what that translates to?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So hold your Death Star ranking until the end, but
okay,
that's good. And Greg, overarching feelings about the movie. What did you think about
me next? Okay, I'm gonna go a little bit longer than Dave here, because I'm gonna harken back to Ragnarok, which I adored. Probably my top 2 or 3 Marvel movies, if not my top 1, is Ragnarok. I love it. I still watch it. It's fantastic. Dave did not appreciate it as much as I did. I think he still just, I think it's grown on him some, because we've just gushed all over it so much that he has no choice but to just accept that we are right and he is wrong. But I still don't think it's one of his favorites. I understand now what Dave was talking about after seeing Thor Love and Thunder.
My God.
Whoa. Okay.
Whoa. I am blown away by this. Hang on. I really am.
I really enjoyed Thor Love and Thunder as a whole. From beginning to end, I enjoyed it. I would go back to the theater to see it one more time, because there's stuff that I want to see again. When it comes on Disney Plus, I will watch it 2 or 3 times when it comes out. However, the whole of the beginning of the movie, the first 45 minutes, it's a 2+ hour movie. And for the first 45 minutes, there are so many jokes that are packed in there. It's joke after joke after joke after joke. And I laughed at a good portion of them. Don't get me wrong. They're all funny, but none of them really serve the story. That's what I really appreciated about Ragnarok is there were a ton of jokes in there, but the story's always moving ahead. With Love and Thunder, for almost the first half of this movie, every time they throw one of these jokes in, the whole movie comes to a screeching halt. And I was like, I got to the point where like, I'm really over it. I want you to tell a good story. And they started to. It's a really weird story. It's very Kirby-esque. It deals with fucking, eternity, which is a character I'd never thought that they would put on screen just because it's so esoteric of a concept to throw out there. It's dealing with these universal powers and these beyond God beings is something that really, comes from the mind of Jack Kirby, like I said before. And I really appreciate that they made what is a good comic book cosmic story. You're not going to see anything else like this until you really get into like whatever they do with Fantastic Four, because you don't see this with Spider-Man. You don't see it really with any of the individual Avenger characters like Captain America standalone or any of like the, any Daredevil, any X-Men stuff. You don't see that. You only see that in the Thor comics and the Fantastic Four comics. So I was really appreciative that they did this kind of thing.
Well,
so I just because I was referenced there, first of all, Greg, I'm humbled and touched that you understand what I was saying about Ragnarok now. And I just want to be clear to people who might be listening to this for the first time. My objection to Ragnarok, if I'm just looking at it critically as a film, I give it high marks. Because to your point, everything there serves a purpose. All the jokes serve a very specific purpose. My objection to Ragnarok is that it doesn't feel like my Thor. I'm more of a Simonson Kirby Thor as opposed to the wisecracky Guardian of the Galaxy Thor. And I was thinking about this over the weekend. The Russo interpretation of Thor after Ragnarok that was in Infinity War and Endgame, I love that Thor. That mix up the wisecrack with the gravitas of the Brana interpretation that they brought. I love that Thor. I will watch that Thor every day of the week and twice on Sunday. And for everything that I loved about Ragnarok and enjoyed about Love and Thunder, it's not the Thor that I envision or that I want to see on the screen, which is tough for me to say because I know it's what Chris Hemsworth loves playing and is what keeps attracting him back to the character at this point.
He has so much fun in this role that he's really good as this character on the screen. They just tone it down just a pinch.
Well, okay. So let me pose this question to you both then. We all share this love of Taika Waititi. Is this movie like Taika Waititi Unleashed? Because it certainly feels, getting to know his sense of humor and just how this man operates comedically, and the fact that he is essentially the narrator of the film. Does it seem to you, Dave, like it's sort of like there's no guardrails for him, and maybe there should have been?
I will say that it felt a little unfocused, and I know there were a lot of significant things that were cut out of this, right? Like Jeff Goldblum was supposed to be back as the Grandmaster, gone. Yep. Lena Headey from Game of Thrones, she was supposed to have a character.
Yep.
Yeah, whatever. She was supposed to have a character in this movie, gone.
What was she going to play?
It hasn't been disclosed. Yeah, and Peter Dinklage also was back as Eitri the giant dwarf.
Right.
Yeah, so there's a lot. There's a lot of even more unfocused stuff, it would seem, that wound up on the cutting room floor. And when asked about it, the good director explained because it's not very good. It doesn't make a very good movie.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that is, but it's definitely lacking the crispness of Ragnarok and the focus and certainty of Jojo Rabbit as well. Because Jojo Rabbit goes over the line, like in practically every frame of that film goes over the line, but it's always with a very distinct purpose, and there's not a lot of throwaway stuff in there.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up on that, and I'm going to circle it back to Steve's question of, is it him, is it him being let loose? And I think it's him being told, we want more of that. We want to see Ragnarok on fucking steroids, on fucking acid, and that's what we want you to do. And I don't know that it works as well, because I've seen Jojo Rabbit, I've seen Our Flag Means Death, his new show on HBO. Both really funny, but a lot of feeling in both of those properties as well. It's not. It doesn't all have to be yucks and ha-has. They can be funny and still serve the purpose of the story. And I don't think this one does it. I think he's being told, we want you to do what you did last time times 100.
Which is a bit of a shame if that's what they did, because the Jane Jane Foster story, that arc, that's handled pretty completely within the context of this movie. And I actually wish they would have drawn that out more over additional films and given it some time to breathe. Because that is a story that has a lot of heart and a lot of meaning and depth. And they just didn't, it didn't really have the space it needed to. It was crowded out by some great bits. Like, I loved the fact that he made the Hammers characters. I absolutely adored the fact that Stormbreaker was jealous of Mjolnir throughout the movie.
That was good stuff.
And I'm sorry, every time those fucking goats yelled on screen, I laughed every fucking time.
Yes.
So, Greg, you mentioned the first 40 minutes of the movie and how sort of like I don't know if hectic is the right word, but it just seems like it was full
slapstick.
frontal assault. Yeah,
it was old school Three Stooges, Marx Brothers, whatever you want to call it. It was an assault on the senses as far as getting jokes out on the screen there.
Aside, I will say, from the opening scene with Christian Bale brilliantly playing Gore the God Butcher, and seeing him and his daughter in the desert. The daughter dies. He stumbles along the desert. He finds his god's oasis in the desert, and turns out the god's, just a self-absorbed asshole. And I just thought Christian Bale
feels very real, by the way. Like, I love that idea. It's not an original idea, but I love it. That the gods are just like, who the fuck cares? There will be more followers in the future. Whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. And I just thought Christian Bale in the opening sequence and throughout the movie, there's not one scene that he doesn't just, eat up the screen.
Yeah, he was. I really I thought it was an interesting take on his performance. The character in the comic books, the character of Gore the God Butcher, is a lot more serious, and this character really, leans into I'm being corrupted by the swords, corruption of the soul, and now he's got children, and now he's going to be this evil, Pied Piper kind of dude, leading these guys down this path. It was interesting. I enjoyed him as well. I thought he did really well.
So
you haven't really seen him as a villain like this before, so it was kind of cool.
Is Gore a major character in the comics? Is there a thread that runs through the comics with him, or is it like a one-off, or how does that play out?
There's a whole series by Jason Aaron, which is basically the Gore the God Butcher. It was a run that took like a year or something like that basically tells pretty much this whole story. And some of the panels from the movie, or some of the shots in the movie, are recreations of the panels from the comic book. I mean, like really, really like faithful. Like the part where he's standing on the rock, looking over that giant white beast that was killed. That was a god that he was talking about with his friend. There's a comic book image that's that exact shot, except they did add Korg in there for the movie because Korg's not in the comic book. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I love when they do that.
So yes, he does play a major. Yeah. He's not like a Doctor Doom who shows up every now and then. He had a major storyline that came up for this one series. I don't know if he's come back again or not. I really don't.
Okay, got it. So what did you guys think of the Jane character in this movie? What were your takeaways? Did you enjoy Natalie Portman's performance? Does it ring true with the comics to you?
It does, and I did, but by the same token, it almost felt like her character arc was there completely in service to the arc of the story for Thor's character. And that feeling just felt a little jarring to me, just because I know Marvel's trying to pay more attention to their female characters and have them stand more on their own. And that I'm not saying that she was playing the chick or the girlfriend, just it felt that her arc was completely subservient to the Thor arc, which I suppose makes sense because it's a Thor, i.e. Chris Hemsworth movie, but she's supposed to be a Thor as well. And I would have liked to have seen it break and feel more important and have more weight than perhaps it did. And I don't know if you think I'm crazy or not, Craig, with that reaction.
No, I was thinking about what you said earlier, and that her story is told so quickly throughout the course of this movie because she has her own run of comics. I mean, that's the one thing that they've done with a lot of the MCU stories is they've kind of picked and chosen pieces from different stories and mashed them together. You know, Ragnarok. A large part of Ragnarok comes from actually a Hulk story. It comes from Planet Hulk. Excuse me, it comes from Planet Hulk. And that's not like Thor is not involved in that story at all. But Thor goes to Sakaar and Thor becomes a champion there, and there's a whole story that's built around that. And so, you know, they have this habit of doing that with these movies, and that's what they've done with the Jane Foster story. But there's so much more to that story that's in the comic books. I mean, it was an ongoing series for a time being, and there was a lot to tell there. And, you know, spoiler alert for the comics: she does die in the comics, just like she does in the movie. But you know, it was told, you know, and you could have had her do her role, and maybe it would have been good to see a I don't want to call it Lady Thor. What did they call the? They call it Thor Jane Foster, something like that. I'm trying to think of what they called it.
They still called her Thor because at that point Thor was the unworthy. He lost the hammer because he was no longer worthy to carry the hammer in the Marvel comics. And her death in the Marvel comics was very, very Shakespearean and very, as my writing professors would say, surprising but inevitable. Mm-hmm. When the decision was finally made that nope. To get out of this fight, I have to become Thor again and kill myself to save everything. It's a very gut-wrenching moment. Even for someone like me who's been reading comics since they could basically read. Like, you know what's going to happen. You still feel your heart getting ripped out by it.
Yeah. And, you know, this was really kind of like the Cliff Notes version of that, again, so you could get to the rest of Chris Hemsworth, Thor Odinson's story, so...
I did love when they went back and told the sort of like the arc of the relationship between Jane and Thor and how they grew together and grew apart and ended up breaking up essentially because they were afraid to hurt one another. I just love that whole, and I think it's set to the music to ABBA. I think.
Yes.
We got to talk about the music in the film, and I wish Scott was here because I know he would have some strong feels about this. But the music in the movie is great as well.
I really hope everybody likes Guns N' Roses because you're going to hear a lot of it.
but we certainly understand the choice of the song "Sweet Child of Mine." Yes. For the trailers and the marketing. Now, as you get to the end of the movie, literally the last line of the movie.
Yeah. And I appreciated all of it. You know, the opening scene with "Welcome to the Jungle," I thought was very well placed. You know, there was a lot that really worked. I don't think that the guitar solo from "November Rain" worked quite as well during the big battle.
I had the same feeling.
And I'm comparing it to the last movie during the big battle where they played the Led Zeppelin song, and I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of the Led Zeppelin song. Immigrant song. Thank you, Steve. Where it worked fucking perfectly. Yeah. This was not that.
Now, supposedly, the director has said he was planning on using Kate Bush in the soundtrack, but Stranger Things ruined that option for him.
Running up that hill?
Yes. I don't know if he's joking about that or not, because, I mean, it is him. He could be totally pulling our leg. But
it is Taika Waititi. That's true.
That's got to be a joke.
It's got to be a joke, but Guns N' Roses is so heavy throughout. I can't help but wonder, like, is that possible? Did we get November Rain because he was planning on using Running Up the Hill by Kate Bush?
Yeah, I'm like, it just, I don't know. I didn't really, understand how that fit into the story they were trying to tell there. All I could see is fucking Axl Rose crying in the rain somewhere over a gravesite. I'm like, I don't get this at all.
By the way, small sidebar. There's a guy on YouTube that I've been watching for a while named Rick Beato. And if you're if you're a guitar player, he's a musician, guitarist. He plays every instrument, and he's fantastic. He's been in the business for 30 years and has all these great interviews. And he does a series called "What Makes the Song Great," as part of his videos that he releases. And he just did one on the Kate Bush song, talking about capitalizing on the Stranger Things stuff. But yeah, it's definitely worth a watch. Go check that out. Rick Beato on YouTube. Very, very good stuff.
He's a producer by trade.
Yes.
He's been in bands, but he's been a producer for many years. He was a very popular and much used producer in the 90s during the new metal period. And so a lot of the new metal bands were produced by him. If you like music production, he's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. I watch his videos all the time. I love that dude.
That guy can play. That guy is
he can play every
artist.
instrument.
Yeah, he's really good.
Exactly.
All right, so what else do we want to say about this movie? We're not going shot by shot, scene by scene. I'm just kind of focused on the some of the things that stood out for me. What did you think about Russell Crowe? Russell Crowe as Zeus.
I liked his quasi-Greek accent. I thought that was hilarious, actually.
That was a little pulled me out a little bit, but it's Russell Crowe, so whatever.
What would you pick? Would you pick his Greek accent or Kevin Costner's English accent from Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves?
It was like a cross of like Greek and Italian, though. I don't want to insult any Greeks that are out there, but because it was a cross of like Greek and Italian.
I think Russell Crowe did a good enough job of that already for everybody, so it's all right.
And then Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie. She's always good.
She's
I
always
liked her.
good.
She was good.
Yeah.
But she had. So there was one gag in there that, upon reflection, I'm like, wow, that was surprisingly dark, and that was in the montage of kingly duties that she's doing, where she opened the infinity cones
ice cream stand.
Oh. Which, if you think about it, is an ice cream stand based on the idea of a genocide that was prevented for half the population of the known universe. And I'm like, that is a shockingly dark business plan and sight gag to put in there. Infinity cones.
Well, the whole idea is really kind of devilish, that if you have an alien race, for all intents and purposes, relocating onto Earth, the best thing you can do is come up with theme park attractions for their home. I mean, they have the Asgard, the Rainbow Bridge ride that they end up, lashing the goats to, and takes them on their journey for most of the movie. You have, them, Matt Damon and the other Hemsworth brother. I'm not sure which Hemsworth brother it is.
The third Hemsworth brother.
And Sam Neill recurring their roles as the actors, coming back and staging plays for the visiting, humans, if you will.
And Melissa McCarthy as Hell, which was another great.
Yeah, I wasn't all in on that. I was really in on Matt Damon coming in. I wasn't all in on Melissa McCarthy, and it's just because I kind of have a terrible disdain for Melissa McCarthy. I don't think she's funny at all. I've never seen her in a movie where I thought she was good. Even Bridesmaids, I've never enjoyed her. The only thing she's been good in that I thought was funny was when she was doing Sean Spicer on Saturday Night Live, and that's about it.
God, she did tear that up, didn't she?
She did tear that up.
Yeah, she did.
Did anyone, when you mentioned the Rainbow Bridge ride, when I saw that, and I guess I never saw it before, or the Rainbow Bridge has been in other movies, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Although it was broken at the end of the first movie.
Okay.
So they
that's right.
And so they don't really have to take the Rainbow Bridge. Yeah. Even though at the end of the first movie, they said they can never get back to Earth, without the Rainbow Bridge, but it's never been a problem. So.
Okay. So what I thought of, what my mind flashed to when I saw that Rainbow Bridge, was Anchorman. I don't know if you remember the scene, but Ron Burgundy and Veronica finally hook up, and they have sex, and they go to like Pleasureland, and they're sliding down this Rainbow Bridge. So dumb. My mind, free association.
This is what I'm working with, people.
I don't know. Come on, Anchorman, one of the funniest movies.
Good night, San Diego. Go fuck yourself.
Probably the last funny Will Ferrell movie too.
I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty important. It's just so horrible. Anyway, good stuff there. All right, I have a rundown of the music really quick, guys. I just gotta spend some time. All right, we got Sweet Child of Mine. Now, the Guns N' Roses stuff was great in the movie, but I gotta say, I was like waiting for it because the trailer was so good. And I was so fired up about the trailer that it lost a little bit of luster in the movie for me, but still good stuff. Got some Enya in there. Rainbow in the Dark. Dio. That was pretty good.
That was playing over the end credits there. I was like, wow, they're going with Dio here. All right.
Paradise City, ABBA, Our Last Summer, Mary J. Blige, Family Affair, more Guns N' Roses, November Rain, as you mentioned, which I totally agree with you. The guitar solo does not work nearly as well as Immigrant Song. What else? Let's see. We got, that's all Michael Giacchino stuff. Giacchino.
Gesundheit either way.
Excuse me.
While you're looking that up, he is going to be directing something, I think, for Marvel coming up here.
Michael Giacchino?
Yes.
Giacchino! Yeah. Sorry.
I'm going to look it up while you're going through that.
I don't see any. I guess that's all the pop songs, and other than Michael Giacchino's score for this movie. But really, really fun and great use of the GNR stuff. It's great to see that come back.
He is going to be directing an untitled Marvel Halloween special that's supposed to air this year.
That is allegedly focused around Werewolf by Night.
Isn't that weird? Good on him, though. The guy has made you could almost consider him a successor to John Williams.
Ooh, bite your tongue.
And he's going to be directing movies.
Yeah.
Dude, John Williams is going to be dead soon. Let's all face facts.
Why you got to go dark, man?
Yeah, man. Jesus.
Yeah, man.
Bring us down.
All right, what else do we want to say about Thor here? Anything else stand out for you guys?
Well, the ending I thought was sweet, and the tie-in, because normally I hate movies that begin and end with a narration. Normally I do, but I like that Korg is starting off telling us this story, and it ends with, oh, this is why they're called Love and Thunder, because
so movies like Goodfellas you hated.
Fucking hate Goodfellas. Fuck that fucking thing. Normally I do. I don't trust them.
Why are you laughing, Greg? What's so funny?
What's so funny?
Oh, you?
Am I a clown?
But I loved how they tied that all together, and now Thor is, a dad, and he's out in the universe teaching this young kid the ways of being a hero. And Thor will return. I love that.
That's pretty cool.
I love that we left that Natalie Portman is in Valhalla because she died in battle.
Okay, now that's a post-credit scene. Are we going to break these down really quick?
Why the fuck not? We already broke it. We already ruined the first one in the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
I did bury the lead a little bit. Sorry about that. So there's actually 2 post-credit scenes, and one of them is what you're talking about, Dave, with Jane in Valhalla.
Yeah, and that is
with Heimdall.
And that is the arc the character goes through. Is after she does die, she is resurrected in the comics as a Valkyrie, and goes on to now fight as Jane Foster, Valkyrie warrior.
Okay. Well,
so
if you're
that's now on the table.
I don't know if Heimdall's dead in the comics. Does anybody know?
He's dead here in the movies.
Yeah. Who we did not see in Valhalla is Loki. Makes no appearance at all. Died in battle.
But yes, and there could be a Loki in Valhalla, which I love, and I hope we get to see Loki in Valhalla.
Yeah. So again, and maybe that's something for season 2 of Loki. Although I think that's technically a different Loki in this.
It's a different
series?
Loki. It is a different Loki.
Okay. So confusing.
But I do hope we get we get Loki in Valhalla, because that is something that this film was missing, which is the natural chemistry and banter that does exist between Chris Hemsworth and Tom Hiddleston.
So, as I know we're talking about, but while we're on the Loki topic, going back to the scenes at the meeting of the gods, it's not Olympus, but it's where all the gods met.
Eternia, I think.
And where Zeus flicks away Chris Hemsworth's clothes, we see the R.I.P. Loki tattoo that Thor has gotten, which was fucking spot on. It's great. Did anybody recognize any of the other tattoos? There were a bunch of tattoos on his back, and I haven't gone and looked for the breakdown of what they all are.
There's a scroll that has names like Loki and Odin and Frida and Tony and Natasha on it.
It's great.
And Natasha.
Yeah.
Yeah, Black Widow.
I couldn't stop looking at his ass. I just
None of us could.
He is ripped beyond belief. I mean, Jesus Christ. How much must you work out? What kind of a commitment does it take to look like that? It's amazing.
I know. It's amazing.
It's crazy.
There are websites, Greg, devoted to what are all the tattoos on Chris Hemsworth back in that movie, just like there are figuring out what are all the Jedi names in the path.
Right.
So I guess we've got Valhalla. The other big scene was Zeus did not actually die when Thor threw the lightning bolt at him, or the thunderbolt. Excuse me, he threw the thunderbolt at him. He did not actually die, and he swears his revenge upon the Norse gods, and he recruits his one of his sons, his half-human son, by the way, which is of course Hercules from is that Greek mythology, Dave?
Yep.
From Greek myth. So Hercules is his half-human son, played by, of course, Brett Goldstein. And the first thing I mentioned to Cara on our way out is Thor is extremely ripped, as you just mentioned, Steve.
Yes.
Huge. And looks like Thor, as Thor should, like he looks like Thor should look. I mean, if you're gonna hire somebody as Thor, you make him look like fucking Chris Hemsworth, because that's what the guy is supposed to look like.
Right.
Hercules looks like that, but with dark hair. So I don't know what they're gonna do with Brett Goldstein, because I've seen him in Ted Lasso. He does not look like Chris Hemsworth. So I hope the boy's eating some egg whites. I hope he's got a personal trainer. Because boys got to put on some LBs, man. Don't skip leg day. Don't skip back day. Don't skip arm day.
Crunch day.
Don't skip chest day. You got some work to put in there, buddy. You got to get the reps in, is what I'm saying.
I think he can do it. I mean, he's not a small guy. He's slight. He's lean, but I don't think he's a small dude. I think he's got the frame for it. He can pull it off.
Well, the movie is not even. Apparently, they haven't even cast Chris Hemsworth in this movie yet. So he's got some time. Let's just say he's got some time.
Yeah, the last, if you stay all the way through, the last thing is the old school Marvel Cinematic card that just says Thor will return. And Chris Hemsworth said, my reaction to that was to turn to Natalie and say, are they talking about you? Because I'm not under contract for anything else. and Natalie Portman's like, I don't know what they're talking about. And Taika
I thought they were talking about you.
There's going to be another Thor movie? Wait, I'm not under contract for anything. Like, apparently nobody knew that was being dropped in.
That's crazy.
All right. I'm going to end this part of the show with Steve's dumb Marvel question of the day. I really need to produce
Excellent.
One. We're limiting it to only one.
I really need to produce here. Let's produce on the fly here. It's Steve's dumb Marvel question of the day.
Do it.
It's disgusting.
Are you insane?
That's pretty good,
you,
actually.
Steve.
That's pretty good. All right, I'm gonna isolate that for sure. Okay, my dumb question of the day for Marvel is regarding Marvel is.
Okay.
I was expecting to see. Okay, you're talking about who is the big bad. I was looking for the big bad. I immediately got the sense that, okay, Gore, the God Butcher, okay, he's a bad guy. He's not going to be the big bad. He's just not big and bad enough. I was looking forward to seeing something about Galactus. We've been talking about Galactus as the big bad in Phase 4. At least I remember us talking about that going into Phase 4.
As a possibility, yes.
No Galactus in this movie, as far as I know. So my question is, where is Galactus, and are you guys still predicting Galactus as the big bad in Phase 4?
I'm not. I am not. We have one member of the Fantastic Four introduced, and anything related to Galactus has to come through the Fantastic Four. So you got to have them come first before you have a Galactus. I still am of the belief, and I'm sorry if I'm cutting you off here, Dave. I am still of the belief that the big bad for this phase, which is still really unclear, that it's going to be Kang the Conqueror, not Quang, Kang the Conqueror.
Wang the Conqueror?
Quang the Conqueror.
Racist,
yes. That's why I corrected it. Kang the Conqueror. And he will make his appearance next, as far as we know, in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So,
okay,
that's where we'll see him next.
Greg, do you agree, or
I don't know if that's
anything
the
to
end
add
of Phase 4, if that's somewhere in the middle of Phase 4. I don't know. Phase 4 seems to be going on for an infinite amount of time. I don't know when the end of Phase 4 is coming.
Phase 4 theoretically is going to get to an end with the Fantastic Four movie, which has never had a release date announced, and by the way, lost its director. So,
did it? Oh, that's right, John Watts. That's right.
Yeah, John Watts bowed out.
That's right. Oh, wow.
So I'm with you. I don't know when Phase 4 is going to end. I think Galactus still could be a big bad. I think that's still possible. But to your point, Galactus came from the Fantastic Four. They're not going to introduce Galactus before they introduce the Fantastic Four. And I feel like just as Thanos was introduced as the tag end scene for Avengers, like that's what would happen.
Mm-hmm.
We would get the Fantastic Four, we would get an origin story, and then the tag scene is some like weird zoom out of Galactus and a herald, and then it's fade to black.
See,
and that could be the thing. And the simple fact that they haven't given any real allusions to Galactus anywhere is the only thing that makes me think that perhaps he still is a big bad character being held, because they put a lot of stuff into Thor of Love and Thunder, of the cosmic characters, and Galactus was not one of them.
So, that kind of leads me back to what we were talking about before. With we always knew it was going to be Thanos as the big bad for that series, but like Dave says, Thanos isn't really introduced until the last movie of Phase 1. He's really teased at in Phase 2, and he becomes an in-the-flesh character in Phase 3, and that's when they kill him off. So I guess if they're following that same formula, we don't figure out who the big bad is until we get to the end of Phase 4, if we're following that same formula. And maybe it will be Galactus, but we won't see anybody fight Galactus until the end of Phase 6 at that point, I guess.
Yeah. And when I say they dropped a lot of stuff in, when they were having that climactic fight in Eternity's Cave, there were statues there of multiple cosmic beings from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There was a statue of Eternity in the cave.
The Living Tribunal was there.
There was a statue of Infinity in the cave. There was a statue of Death in the cave. There was a statue of the Watcher in the cave. The Living Tribunal was there. And Eon was there. And I think there was a statue of one of the Celestials as well, the one above all.
Yeah, they were hinted at all over the place, but they were hinted at in the Loki series as well. There were statues and references to all of those characters, I believe, in the Loki series also.
So it again, those are characters that hobnob with Galactus, that are on the same level of importance or cosmic grandeur as Galactus, and he is conspicuous in his absence so far.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the only kind of breadcrumb that makes me think that perhaps he is still a big bad, if not the big bad. And Feige has said that the arc of the story is not going to mirror what we saw for the Infinity Saga. So don't necessarily look to, oh, we did it that way for phase 1, 2, and 3, and that's going to lather, rinse, repeat for 4, 5, and 6 in terms of a story structure.
Yeah,
I like that. I think that's good.
Because they've introduced a lot of stuff here to digest and say you can go this way or that way or over here, and there's still all these other threads that you could pick up and do at a later time as a result.
Well, and as we see today, because they just ended Miss Marvel, and I think this is kind of the out that Steve was looking for as they introduce as they close out the Miss Marvel series today. There's a lot more that's introduced now, so they are still going.
All right, that's a great transition. Thank you for answering this Steve Stupid Marvel question of the day, guys. Let's transition now for the last few minutes of the show to we'll call it a broad overview of Miss Marvel. We haven't talked about Miss Marvel at all on the show, and I'm feeling
I think it's barely been mentioned. Yeah,
I'm feeling a little bit guilty about that because I'm seeing some great reviews now that the series has ended. I've got to go back. It's something I need to binge now. You guys are caught up on it. What is your impression of Miss Marvel? And I'm not worried about spoilers. Don't worry about spoiling me. But warning to the audience, we might spoil the entire thing for you here. So if you haven't seen Miss Marvel, go watch it and then come back and listen to this portion of the show. But guys, what do you think? What is your
go spend 6 hours watching a show and then come back
and then come back to this show
for our 5-minute take on those 6 hours. But I'll kick off. I loved a lot of it. I said this in the pre-show. I can't believe they mined the clandestine as source material and characters for something. That is nuts to me. I can't believe I saw that. When they introduced the Red Dagger group, I was just like, oh, a nut. Yet how? And I know it's the cliche of comics, but even in my head, I'm like, oh God, come on. How many secret freaking societies are there in the Marvel Cinematic Universe at this point? I mean, Jesus Christ, people. Jesus Christ. But the magic of the lead character, and Marvel has a pretty almost unblemished record of casting for its films, not just in the lead characters, but the supporting and minor characters as well. Yeah. They did a fantastic job finding this actress because she is a joy to watch, and it is a good window onto a different cultural experience than perhaps most of us have had growing up in America. And I valued that out of the show. So that's my overview. Then Greg, I think you can do your overview, and then we can come back to what are the big threads that they kind of introduced in the last 120 seconds of the show.
I also feel the same way that you did. I did not religiously binge this show. Like, I was always keeping up to date week after week after week, but I would catch up to the episode midweek or something like that, or early on the weekend, just to knock it out. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it's because, like you say, because this young lady who's the actress playing Kamala Khan is great in this role. When we first saw Tom Holland as Spider-Man, I think we all kind of fell in love with that kid, and we all appreciated the enthusiasm and the energy, and the just kind of the wide-eyed wonder of him inhabiting this character, and what it's like to be a child with these gifts and how you use them and everything. I get that same energy out of this actress's name, and I don't know what her real name is, but I get the same energy out of her, and she is just as good as in her role as Kamala Khan as Tom Holland is as Peter Parker. So if you appreciate what Tom Holland's doing, you'll appreciate what this young lady's doing with this role. And really is the reason to watch the show for me, because she's so good. She's coming into it so wide-eyed. She's really having fun doing it, and really making it fun for the person who's watching the show.
The actress is Iman Vellani is her name. Iman
Vellani. She's great in this show. Cannot recommend her this show enough just for her. But excellent. To go along with that, and Dave kind of brought this up as well, I think it was in the off-show comments, the people that she has as her family, and the show is very much about family. It's very much about family ties, and how you kind of have to live with your legacy and everything like that. She was born in the United States, but she's a child of immigrants, and so she's got her foot in the modern world. It all takes place in Jersey City, for the most part. There's
except for the two episodes that don't.
Except for the 2 episodes that don't. But there's not any, universe spanning, in a way. It's a really self-contained story that's just a lot of fun to sit through. So yeah, that's my overview of it right there.
So to tie up the conversation about it, though, let's get to the last 2 minutes, because that's all I think everybody is going to be talking about. The origin of Miss Marvel in the TV show is very, very different from what it is in the comics, and I could do a whole podcast on the why that is behind the scenes, the business of it, because it's a giant rabbit hole to go down. But let's just leave it at it's different for a reason. This
is Kevin Feige completely fucking with everybody right now. This is a complete
yes. There's meta upon meta layers of what's happening here. But when we get to the end of it, the conceit of the show is that she gets her powers from a bangle, basically, is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
That apparently belonged to her grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
And as
this is the TV show version. This is the TV show version? Okay,
yes.
This is the TV show version.
Her kid scientist friend, who is apparently a bioengineer on the level of Hank Pym or Bruce Banner, says that he's been isolating her genetic makeup and comparing it against her family, and that there is something that's just different about her genetic makeup. And he's saying, maybe,
what would cause that, Dave? What would possibly cause that?
He says the only thing he can think of that would cause it, the only thing he could use to describe it, is that it's some type of mutation. And the music cue that they play when he says mutation is from the X-Men animated series from 1997, which is the same music cue that they used when Patrick Stewart appeared in Doctor Strange in the Madness of the Multiverse.
Exactly.
So they drop a bomb literally on the way out. That is like one of the last lines of dialogue in the episode, that it's not just a magical bangle that gives her powers. She's a mutant.
She's also a mutant. Which, and we're going to get a little bit of inside baseball, because I know this is what Dave wants to talk about as well. So they've never had mutants in the MCU because it was owned by Fox. So because they could never have mutants back in the day when they were first getting started out, who was the other guy who was in Ike Perlmutter?
Ike
Perlmutter. Was the other guy in charge of the MCU. He was so mad he could not have mutants or anything like that. He scrounged together every character he possibly could and said, okay, the MCU versions of mutants are going to be the Inhumans, which are, because they did own those properties, and that's like Black Bolt. Black Bolt shows up in Multiverse of Madness. He's the guy who gets the back of his head blown out when his mouth gets sealed shut. He's an Inhuman. So in the MCU, because they did not own any of the rights to mutants, they had to call them all Inhumans. In the comic books now, Kamala Khan is an Inhuman. So now that they own all of it, they don't make Kamala Khan her true comic book character, they don't make her comic book character counterpart and make her an Inhuman like she is to correspond. No, they make her a mutant instead. So all of this is designed just to confuse Steve Baldwin. Is what all this is designed to do.
Or is it really? Well, that might be an offshoot. I don't know if it's designed for me, but is it a big fingers up to like, look what we get to do now, fucker?
It is, because the clashes between Feige and Perlmutter nearly led to Feige quitting the Marvel Studios MCU job. And Bob Iger made a critical decision. He usually, when he purchases these types of brand companies, he usually leaves the leadership team intact that was there when he bought it. And the friction between Perlmutter and Feige was so bad, and he didn't want to lose Feige, that he specifically stepped in and erased the line from Feige to Perlmutter and redirected it to himself. And that is the reason that Feige stayed and did Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And we are all here today still talking about this.
I think I don't know this for sure, but it almost seems like that it came down to it's a him or me type of moment for Kevin Feige. I mean, he really there was so much friction between the two of them, and Perlmutter again was all in on this Inhuman show, which was eventually released and did not even make a full season's worth of airing before they canceled it. That's how badly it failed.
And it's a horrible, just a putrid piece of show.
Yeah.
All respect to the people who worked on it, including Anson Mount, who I really, really enjoy and respect as an actor, but just a bad show, man.
Yeah, it was going because both Perlmutter and Feige had two different ideas for where they wanted the MCU to go. This is at the conclusion of Phase 2, like Dave says, and Feige says we're going to do it this way or I'm walking, and so he won that war. I think Ike is still around.
Ike is still around. He's still making a lot of money. Still donating a lot to former President Trump. But
but he doesn't have anything to do with the MCU as we know it as of today.
No. Yeah. And Perlmutter was also opposed to a Black Panther movie and a Captain Marvel movie.
Yeah, that's exactly why we get those because Feige won, and these are the movies that he wanted to produce, and I think history will show he may have done okay.
I think you're right, but I'm also going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say we have the Black Panther movie coming out in November, Black Panther 2. And
yeah, that's the next one.
It appears that Namor of Atlantis is going to be making an appearance in that movie. And Namor has been defined as the first mutant of the Marvel Universe. Because he's
except for Kamala Khan.
I'm just saying it's interesting that they've now thrown it down like mutants exist in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and now one of our next products that we get might be Namor, who the comics have marketed for years as the first mutant of the Marvel comics.
And I agree with you that that's how they're doing it, but that is such a horrible, and I mean that sincerely, horrible retcon of history.
Yes, it is.
Because
it is.
The character of Namor, the Submariner, who has wings on his ankles. I'm not kidding, Steve. He has wings. He has tiny little wings on his ankles,
and it's how he flies. So he can't wear socks and have superpowers.
And he also lives underwater, and he has wings on his ankles.
What the fuck?
He's still processing the whole "he can't wear socks and have superpowers" observation.
Is that a real thing? Are you?
We are not fucking with you. I will show you pictures when we're done. He has wings on his ankles. It's how he flies, and he's super strong. So he can pick up a Navy submarine and fly with the Navy submarine with these little tiny wings on his ankles.
Wow.
He's been around since the 40s. He's been around forever. The X-Men came out in the 60s. Namor had come back and made appearances in the Fantastic Four, was never referred to as a mutant. They didn't start calling him a mutant until probably the 90s.
It was
maybe
the
80s?
It was the 90s. It was definitely the 90s. It was during the Byrne run on Namor.
Yeah. So in the 90s, he's actually a mutant is what he is. Oh, fuck you. He doesn't have... Not everybody had... I know it was the 90s and everybody had to be a mutant because it was cool back then, but not everybody has to be a mutant, guys. Captain America's not a mutant.
Isn't he?
Batman's not a mutant.
Batman's not in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Not yet.
So that's one of the things that's dropped in the last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
so
only one.
In the last. Yeah, that's in the actual episode, and then they start rolling credits,
okay.
And then we get our first cutscene from Miss Marvel, and she basically comes back in her room. She's in her costume. She flops down on her bed. She's exhausted from everything. Her mom is yelling at her from downstairs about needing to do homework or something. She kind of sits back up and looks at her bangle, and her bangle starts firing, starts going off.
Yeah.
Which is not normal. Normally the thing responds to her, not the other way around. And then she just kind of implodes into space, which is not something we've ever seen happen before. And then
it was not a power that was displayed at any time during the show.
No. And then another figure seems to explode out of the space and go flying through the wall and the door into the closet. And we don't really see who it is until she steps out. And it's Brie Larson.
Huh. Okay.
Captain Marvel herself.
Carol Danvers with a new haircut, which I appreciated.
New haircut, slightly tweaked costume, too. And she's kind of looking around the room because one of the motifs of this is that Kamala Khan is a giant Captain Marvel fangirl. So
Captain Marvel is her favorite superhero. Yeah.
So just like a teenager, the room is a shrine to Captain Marvel. And Brie Larson is just kind of looking around wide-eyed and it's like, oh, no. No. And runs out of frame, fade to black,
Credits.
And it says, Miss Marvel will return in The Marvels. Which is Captain Marvel 2 coming out next year.
Yeah, it had been previously announced that she was going to be appearing in the Marvel along with Monica Rambeau out of the WandaVision series with her new powers. And I don't know if they've named her Photon yet or if she's also going to go with Captain Marvel. I don't know.
So here's a fun thought. And it's something that I had when I first saw the bangle get introduced. And I said this to Scott. I don't know if you were around for that recording. But I asked Scott, I said, doesn't that look a lot like a nega band? Right? The bracelets that the original male Captain Marvel wore that gave him his powers.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I wasn't there for that. And I did not pick up on that at all until you just said it just now.
And for Steve's benefit, so with the original Captain Marvel, the shtick with the negabands was when you clap them together, you trade places with your secret identity person, who for Captain Marvel was Rick Jones. And whichever one is not occupying space in our physical universe gets transported somewhere else. In the comic books, it was the Negative Zone, a Fantastic Four setting.
Yeah.
But when I saw it, I was like, God, that looks like one of the negabands. And that also was kind of a running theme throughout. Like, oh, where is the other one of these bangles?
Yeah.
Like, here's the one. Where would the other one be? And so when that happened, I just had a thought like, oh, crap. Is that, are they somehow linked? Is that what they're going for here? It's not that they traded spaces exactly. It's that now suddenly they're linked and only one of them can be here at a time.
And maybe that's why she's so panicked also. In that she realizes she's displaced somebody else to the Negative Zone because maybe that's where she's come from.
Maybe that's where she was. Maybe she was looking for the Fantastic Four because Doctor Strange made some reference when he saw Mr. Fantastic. He's like, aren't you from the 60s? Like, they were part of the Marvel history, but they haven't been for a while. Like, they've been missing in action or something.
Yeah.
You know, like the Wasp was for so many years.
True.
Man.
So yeah, lots of major future repercussions just coming out of literally the last 90 or 120 seconds of this show.
which is honestly most of what Phase 4 has been so far, right? It's been a lot of setup for things to come that haven't actually arrived yet. And for the volume of product that's been produced, that's why when people say this is starting to feel like homework, I kind of am starting to understand why they're feeling that way.
Because, if you think about the things that have been introduced, there's the whole... so, Secret Invasion is coming. So we've got Skrulls that are out there, and they're living among us. We've got the Secret Avengers that are being forged through Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and she's got, she's got U.S. Agent so far. She's got Yelena, the new Black Widow, working for her as well. I'm sure she's got others she's looking to recruit. There's a possibility of a Thunderbolt series that's out there that keeps getting thrown around, although that was led by General Ross, who William Hurt recently passed away, so I don't know what they're going to do I don't know how that really affects those plans. There's a lot of threads. There's a lot of plates that are spinning.
Young Avengers. They've basically got the entire Young Avengers lineup in place already.
Yeah, because that's Wiccan and Speed and Kid Loki and the Captain America one, who's the Captain America,
the young super patriot kid.
Yep. And now we got Ms. Marvel in there. Oh, and Kate Bishop as well. My God, yeah,
Man.
it's just there.
If they slow down just a tick, just with what you just mentioned, they could go for a decade. Just with what we're talking about in the last 5 minutes.
They could, and they used to announce these things pretty far in advance. But if you think about it, we don't really know about anything that's really scheduled after next year, right? We know that we have Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, Ant-Man 3. We know we have Captain Marvel 2, a.k.a. the Marvels. And
Guardians 3.
And Guardians of the Galaxy 3, long-awaited third installment of that one. The Fantastic Four movie is unscheduled, and the Blade movie is unscheduled.
Oh, I forgot about Blade.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like we have we have 4 more movies coming out in the next 9 months that we know about, and beyond that, they haven't said anything. And normally they telegraph what they're doing a little more in advance than this.
Yeah. So much. So much.
All right, guys, we got to bounce. We got to get out of here. We're running long. I'm going to get out, and then I'm going to ask you a question here. All right.
Are we saving the question for the post-credits, or are we squeezing the question into the outro?
Well, here's my question really quick. I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that question is. Are you guys caught up on The Boys?
Yes.
No for Dave, yes for Greg.
Yes.
All right.
I haven't watched a single episode.
Oh, all right. Never had one lesson.
Like ever, or just season 3?
Ever.
Oh, well, you got a lot. You got a lot. You should check it out. You should check. I don't know if you've read the comic book. It's very dark and violent, and the show is equally dark and violent. But I enjoy it. It's a good show. It's on Amazon.
It has Carl Urban on it, right?
It sure does.
I do love me some Carl Urban.
He's fantastic, and it's a very fun show.
The kid is Jack Quaid, who's the son of Dennis Quaid and Meg Ryan.
Yes, and who I just realized over the weekend was in the Hunger Games movies. He was one of the kids in those. But who knew?
With the Hemsworth, probably.
Probably.
There was a Hemsworth in that movie as well. I don't think I've ever seen an entire Hunger Games movie.
They just run on a loop in our house, just in our living room.
The first two,
is that or Twilight
for the last 11 years.
Yeah, the first 2 are honestly really good. The
pretty good.
Mockingjay ones kind of fall apart.
Yeah, agreed. Hey, did we ever do the overall rankings number of Death Stars for Thor? I don't think we did.
No, we didn't, but I would give it 2 screaming goats for sure. 2 screaming goats up.
2 screaming goats. Greg?
3.5 out of 5 Death Stars.
Okay, I'll give it 3. 3 out of me. I will go see it again just so I can understand Marvel lore.
And Nico gives it 1 piece of avocado toast,
which he's allergic to, so that makes sense.
And Scott, I'll vote for Scott. I hate The Last Jedi. There you go. All right, episode number, I don't know what we're on, 218 or something like that, is in the books for July 15th of 2022, guys. This was a fun one. It's fun breaking down these Marvel movies. We've got a lot more to come coming your way in the next few years, so join us as we break them all down for you. Until then, may the Force be with us all.